In part 9, Beta learned her mother may still be alive, and the final journey began. Now in the final part, Beta faces her mother and finally finds the truth about herself.
Salt and Pepper, Beta and Bintu in the city, final part. The road to the river village was long, quiet, and heavy. Nobody in the vehicle spoke much at first. The morning sun was just beginning to rise, but inside me, it felt like night had not ended. I sat by the window with my mother's necklace wrapped around my fingers, staring outside as trees, farms, small houses, and dusty paths passed by. Every mile felt like it was taking me closer to a woman I had spent my whole life trying to forget, even though the truth was that I had never really known her. Bintu sat beside me, holding the folder of documents close to her chest. She had refused to stay behind. She said if the story started with all of us being divided by lies, then the ending should not find me standing alone. Adekunle sat in front, silent and tense, his hands clasped together like a man praying without moving his lips. His lawyer came with us too, along with one police officer from the station and a young man who claimed he knew the river village where my mother might have been taken years ago. Mama B did not come. Before we left, she stood at the doorway of Papa B's house and watched us quietly. For the first time, she did not shout, did not command, and did not try to control the moment. She only looked tired, smaller than I remembered, like the weight of her own choices had finally sat on her shoulders. As we entered the vehicle, she told me my mother might not be the person I wanted her to be. I looked at her and told her I did not even know who my mother was. That was why I was going. Those words stayed with me as the vehicle moved away from the compound. I was not going to the river village expecting magic. I was not expecting my mother to run toward me and erase everything with one hug. Life does not work like that. A mother who leaves a child behind cannot return years later and expect the pain to disappear. But at the same time, a child who has been lied to deserves the truth. I needed to know if she was alive. I needed to know why she disappeared again after searching for me. I needed to know what Chief Dogo had done. And maybe, somewhere deep inside a place I did not want to admit, I needed to know if my mother had ever truly loved me. The road became rougher the closer we got to the river village. The city noise disappeared behind us. The houses became smaller. The air became cooler. We passed narrow paths where women carried water on their heads, children ran barefoot, and old men sat under trees watching the world move slowly. The young man guiding us pointed toward a sandy road and said we were close. My heart began beating faster. Bintu noticed and placed her hand over mine. She did not say anything. She did not need to. When the vehicle finally stopped, we were in a quiet village near a wide brown river. Canoes rested near the shore, and the sound of water moving slowly filled the air. The place looked peaceful, but inside me, everything was shaking. An old woman selling roasted plantain pointed us toward a small house behind a line of palm trees. She said a woman called Amara had lived there years ago, but nobody called her Amara at first. They knew her as Sister Grace, a quiet woman who helped in the church and cared for sick children. Amara. That was my mother's name. Hearing it from a stranger's mouth made the past feel real in a way it had not before. We walked toward the house slowly. It was small, with faded blue paint, a zinc roof, and flowers planted near the doorway. A young girl was sweeping the front when we arrived. She looked up at us with fear and curiosity. The police officer asked if an older woman named Amara lived there. The girl hesitated, then ran inside. A few seconds later, an elderly woman came out. She was not my mother. She was short, with grey hair tied under a scarf and eyes that looked like they had seen many things. She asked who we were. Adekunle stepped forward and said he was looking for Amara. The moment the woman heard his name, her face changed. She looked at him for a long time, then looked at me. Her eye settled on the necklace in my hand. She covered her mouth. For a moment, nobody moved. Then she whispered, so the child finally came. My knees almost gave way. Bintu quickly held my arm. The old woman invited us inside. The room was simple but clean. There were wooden chairs, a small table, a Bible on a shelf, and old photographs on the wall. My eyes immediately searched the pictures, hoping to find my mother's face. And there she was. Older than in the photo from the box, thinner too, but still recognizable. She was standing near the river with a group of women, wearing a simple wrapper and smiling softly. I walked toward the picture without realizing it. My hand lifted slowly, but I stopped before touching it. The old woman told us her name was Mama Esther. She said my mother came to the river village many years ago, sick, exhausted, and afraid. She did not come alone. A man brought her at night and told the church people that she needed help but did not want trouble. That man gave them some money and said she should be allowed to stay quietly. Mama Esther said at first they did not ask too many questions because my mother was weak and feverish. She cried often in her sleep and kept calling two names. Adekunle and Beta. The room became silent. Adekunle turned away and wiped his face. I stared at the photograph on the wall, unable to breathe properly. Mama Esther said my mother stayed there for months. Slowly, she became stronger. She started helping around the church, cooking for children, cleaning, and later teaching little girls how to read simple words. She never spoke much about her past, but whenever she did, she talked about a daughter she had lost. She said people had told her the daughter hated her. She said she had failed as a mother and deserved the pain. But every evening, she still sat near the river with a small necklace in her hand and prayed that God would protect her child. I looked down at the necklace in my palm. So she had kept one like mine. Mama Esther continued. She said my mother tried to leave the village several times to search again, but each time, something stopped her. Sometimes sickness returned. Sometimes she had no money. And sometimes fear defeated her before the journey even started. She believed too many lies. She believed I wanted nothing to do with her. She believed Adekunle had abandoned us. She believed returning again would only reopen wounds she had already caused. I asked Mama Esther where she was now. The old woman's face became sad. She said my mother was alive but she was not well. For a moment, I had nothing else. Alive. My mother was alive. The word entered me slowly, like water entering dry ground. I had tried not to hope. I had tried to prepare myself for a grave, a story, or another dead end. But alive was something different. Alive meant there was still a voice. Still a face. Still a chance for answers. Still a chance for pain to stand in front of me instead of hiding behind old letters. Mama Esther told us my mother lived behind the church now, in a small room. Her health had been weak for years, but she still helped whenever she could. She warned us that shock might be too much for her. She said we should not rush into the room with anger. I almost laughed bitterly when I heard that. All my life, adults had rushed their pain into my life without caring what it would do to me. But now, even in this final moment, I had to be careful with someone else's heart. Still, I nodded. We walked behind the church in silence. The path was narrow and lined with flowers. Somewhere nearby, children were singing. Their voices floated through the air, soft and innocent, and for some reason, that sound almost made me cry before I even saw her. I wondered if my mother had children singing every day and thought of the child she lost. I wondered if she imagined me young forever, not knowing I had become a grown woman with scars she helped create. Mama Esther stopped in front of a small room and knocked gently. A weak voice answered from inside. My whole body froze. That voice was not loud. It was not strong. But something inside me recognized pain in it. Mama Esther opened the door slowly. The room was small. A bed stood against the wall. A wooden chair sat near the window. There were folded clothes on a small table, a cup of water, and a worn Bible with papers tucked between its pages. And on the bed sat a woman with tired eyes, thin shoulders, and gray beginning to touch her hair. My mother. For a few seconds, she did not understand what was happening. She looked at Mama Esther first, then at the police officer, then at Adekunle. The moment her eyes reached Adekunle, her hand flew to her chest. She whispered his name like she had carried it under her tongue for years. Adekunle. Adekunle could not answer. He stepped forward slowly, tears already in his eyes. Then my mother's eyes moved to me. Everything stopped. She looked at my face, then at my hair, then at the necklace in my hand. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She stared at me like someone looking at a dream she was afraid to touch. Then her eyes filled with tears. Better. Hearing my name from her mouth broke something in me. Not because it healed me. Because it hurt. It hurt that she knew my name. It hurt that she recognized me. It hurt that the woman I had spent years imagining as cold and gone was sitting there crying like she had been bleeding too. I wanted to run to her. I wanted to shout at her. I wanted to ask why. I wanted to tell her she had no right to cry. I wanted to ask if she knew how many nights I slept feeling unwanted. So many emotions rose at once that I could not move. Bintu stood behind me, crying quietly. My mother tried to stand, but her body was weak. Mama Esther helped her sit back. She stretched one trembling hand toward me, then stopped halfway, as if she remembered she had no right to touch me without permission. That small restraint hurt more than if she had grabbed me. I stepped into the room slowly. I did not hug her. I sat on the chair near the bed. For a long moment, we only looked at each other. Then she said she was sorry. Those words were too small for the years between us. I looked at her and told her not to start with sorry. I told her I needed the truth first. All of it. Not the version that made her look better. Not the version that blamed only Mama B. Not the version that turned her into a victim and me into a child who should understand. I wanted the full truth, even if it made me hate her more. She nodded slowly. And then my mother began. She told me she was young when she met Adekunle. He was kind to her in a world that had rarely been kind. She loved him deeply, but his family looked down on her. When she became pregnant, she was terrified. Adekunle wanted to stand by her, but before they could make proper plans, his business scandal happened. People came after him. His family pushed her away. Chief Dogo visited her and told her Adekunle had run away because he did not want the shame of her pregnancy. She refused to believe it at first, but days became weeks, weeks became months, and Adekunle did not return. She gave birth to me with almost nothing. For some time, she tried to survive alone. She carried me from one place to another, taking cleaning jobs, cooking jobs, any work she could find. She said I was a quiet baby, but I cried whenever she cried, as if my little body already understood her sadness. She said sometimes she had no food, and when people insulted her for having a child without a husband, she smiled outside and cried inside. Then she met Papa B again. He had known her before, and because he had a soft heart, he helped when he could. He allowed people to believe I was his child because he thought it would protect us from shame. My mother admitted that she allowed that lie too. She said at first, it felt like survival. Later, it became a trap. When Papa B married Mama B, she moved away with me because she did not want to destroy his new home. But life became harder and harder. Then came the day she brought me to Papa B's house. Her voice broke there. She said it was the worst day of her life, but also a day she caused with her own hands. She said she had been desperate, hungry, and mentally exhausted. She had no stable home, no stable income, and no family willing to help. She convinced herself that leaving me with Papa B would give me a better chance, because at least there was a house, a woman with a salon, and some kind of family structure. She said she told herself she would return quickly when things improved. But that was the lie she used to survive her guilt. Because she did not return quickly, she ran from the shame of what she had done. She tried to work. She tried to save money. She tried to become someone who could come back with dignity. But the longer she stayed away, the harder it became to return. She said every month that passed made her feel more unworthy. By the time she finally gathered courage, years had already gone. I listened with tears running down my face, but I did not wipe them. She said she sent letters and money. She came to the village once, begging to see me. Mama B told her I hated her. She said Mama B's words destroyed her because part of her believed I had every right to hate her. She left another letter, money, and her address, hoping I would receive it if I ever wanted to find her. But I never came. Then she searched for Adekunle. She had heard he was alive. She traveled to his town and tried to find him, but Chief Dogo's people found her first. My mother said Chief Dogo told her Adekunle was married, powerful, and wanted nothing to do with her or the past. She did not believe him completely, so she kept asking questions. That was when she became a problem to him. He arranged for her to be taken to the river village, not exactly as a prisoner, but as someone hidden away. He gave money to people and told them she was sick and needed quiet. He made sure she had no easy way to live. At first, she wanted to fight. But she was already sick, already tired, already broken by too many years of guilt. The river village became both a hiding place and a cage. The people there were kind to her, but she had no strength to restart the search. So she stayed. She prayed. She waited for a miracle she did not think she deserved. Then she looked at me and said the miracle had come too late. I did not know what to say. Part of me wanted to hold her. Part of me wanted to ask why her weakness kept costing me everything. Part of me wanted to scream that I had been a child, that I should not have had to carry the consequences of her fear, Papa B's silence, Mama B's bitterness, Chief Dogo's greed, and Adekunle's shame. But when I looked at her thin hands, I also saw a woman who had punished herself for years, even if that punishment did not give me my childhood back. Adekunle finally spoke. His voice was shaking when he apologized to her. He said he believed lies. He said he allowed shame to stop him from searching harder. He said Chief Dogo had destroyed both of them, but he also accepted that his own weakness helped the lie survive. My mother cried when she heard him. She told him she had never stopped loving him, but she had stopped believing life would ever give them truth. They looked at each other like two people standing on opposite sides of 20 lost years. But this was not a love story anymore. It was a story of damage. And damage does not disappear because the people who caused it finally cry. The police officer asked my mother if she was willing to give a statement. She nodded. Adekunle's lawyer carefully recorded her words. She confirmed Chief Dogo's role. She confirmed Mama B's lies. She confirmed the letters, the money, and the fact that she had been misled about both me and Adekunle. Her voice was weak, but every word carried weight. By the time we left the room, the case against Chief Dogo had become stronger. But my heart did not feel victorious. I had found my mother alive, but I had also found proof that almost every adult in my life had failed me in a different way. Some failed me through cruelty. Some through fear. Some through silence. Some through greed. Some through weakness. And now they were all looking at me, waiting to see what I would do with the pain they had created. We returned to the front of the house, and the whole village seemed to know something had happened. People stood at a distance whispering. Mama Esther told them to give us space. Bintu sat beside me under a tree. Adekunle stood near the officer, making calls. My mother remained inside resting. Bintu asked if I was okay. I almost laughed. I told her I did not know what okay meant anymore. She nodded, then said something that surprised me. She said maybe healing does not begin when the pain ends. Maybe it begins when confusion ends. She said at least now I knew I was not unwanted by everyone. I looked at her, and for the first time, I allowed myself to consider that. My mother had left me, but she had also tried to return. Adekunle had failed to search hard enough, but he had not known I was alive. Papa B had been silent, but he had also kept some pieces of truth hidden safely when he could. Even Bintu, who once mocked me, was now sitting beside me like a sister. The truth did not erase the pain. But it changed its shape. That evening, we took my mother to the clinic in the nearest town. Adekunle paid for everything without making a show of it. Doctors said she needed proper treatment, rest, and tests. She was weak, but not beyond help. For the first time in years, she would receive real care. Adekunle wanted to move her immediately to a bigger hospital in the city, but the doctor said she needed to be stabilized first. I stayed beside her bed that night. At first, the silence between us was uncomfortable. Then she began telling me small things. Not excuses this time. Memories. She told me I used to hold her finger tightly as a baby. She told me I hated bitter medicine. She told me the first word I tried to say sounded like water. She told me she used to sing to me when she had no food, hoping the song would distract me from hunger. I listened. Those memories were tiny. They could not rebuild my childhood. But they gave me something I never had before. They gave me proof that before I became a burden in someone else's house, I had once been somebody's baby. That thought made me cry quietly. My mother cried too, but neither of us reached for the other. Not yet. The next morning, news came that Chief Dogo had been brought in for questioning again. This time, he was not as confident. Mama B's partial confession, my mother's statement, Adekunle's old business documents, the fake thumbprint issue, and the women's contribution records were all connecting. The police could not solve everything in one day, but the wall around Chief Dogo had cracked. Mama B was also called back to the station. Bintu went with me. When we arrived, Mama B looked exhausted. The proud woman who once controlled everyone with her voice now sat quietly on a wooden bench, hands folded in her lap. When she saw my mother's written statement, she closed her eyes. Maybe guilt finally found her. Maybe fear did. I did not know. The officer asked Mama B to clarify her role in hiding the letters and receiving money. This time, she did not deny it. She admitted she took money meant for me. She admitted she hid letters. She admitted Chief Dogo paid her years ago after telling her the truth would destroy everyone. She admitted she used Papa B's thumbprint without permission when selling the salon. She admitted she had borrowed more from Chief Dogo than she could repay. But even while admitting, she kept saying she was afraid. Afraid the family would starve. Afraid Papa B would be useless forever. Afraid Bintu would lose her future. Afraid my mother would take me away after I had become useful. There was that word again. Useful. I finally told her that fear can explain a wound, but it does not heal it. I told her she had many chances to stop. She could have given me one letter. She could have told me my mother came. She could have let me go to school when money came. She could have treated me like a child even if she was angry. She could have taught Bintu responsibility instead of raising her to depend on others. But she did not. She chose control again and again until control became her character. Mama B cried. For the first time, it did not move me the way it used to. She turned to Bintu and said she had done everything for her. Bintu knelt in front of her mother, but not like the old Bintu who begged for protection. This time, she knelt with sadness and strength. She told Mama B that she loved her, but she could no longer be the reward for another person's suffering. She said if her good life came from Beta's stolen chances, then she had to spend the rest of her life becoming someone better than that. Mama B covered her face. I looked away. Some lessons come late. Some come too late. But they still come. Over the next few days, things began to move faster. The salon sale was suspended while the documents were investigated. The women's contribution group agreed to wait after Adekunle promised that if the investigation confirmed the money trail, he would help recover what could be recovered legally. Madame Vero came from the city and stood beside me like a second mother, not by blood, but by choice. She told the elders that Beta was not alone anymore. Hearing that gave me strength I did not know I needed. Papa B was moved to the city for proper treatment. Adekunle paid for his hospital bills too, though Papa B felt ashamed accepting help from him. Adekunle told him that shame had already wasted enough years. Now they needed to use whatever time remained to do the right thing. Papa B cried when he heard that. He apologized to me again, and this time, I listened more calmly. I told him I was not ready to forget, but I was ready to stop carrying his silence like it was my own fault. That was a big step for me. For years, I thought forgiveness meant pretending nothing happened. Now I understood that forgiveness, if it comes at all, can look different. Sometimes forgiveness means releasing the poison, but still keeping boundaries. Sometimes it means saying, I will not hate you forever, but I will also not lie about what you did. Sometimes it means caring for a person's health without giving them the power to rewrite the story. With Mama B, it was harder. She was not arrested immediately because the investigation was still ongoing, but she was not free either. She had to report regularly. Her movements were watched. Chief Dogo's influence began shrinking as more people came forward. Some old business partners of Adekunle gave statements. A former clerk admitted he helped Chief Dogo prepare false papers years ago. The man from the river village also confirmed that my mother had been brought there under suspicious circumstances. Chief Dogo tried to deny everything. But lies are easier to carry when they are scattered. Once people gather them in one place, they become heavy. Eventually, Chief Dogo was detained while the case continued. The day that happened, nobody celebrated loudly. Maybe because too much damage had already been done. Adekunle only stood outside the station and breathed deeply, like a man who had been holding his breath for 20 years. My mother, still weak but improving, cried when I told her. She did not cry because she wanted revenge. She cried because the lie that stole her life had finally been named. Weeks passed. The final legal matters did not end in one dramatic day, because real consequences take time. But the truth was now on record. Chief Dogo's old business fraud reopened. Mama B's role in hiding letters, receiving money, and falsifying documents became part of the investigation. The salon remained sealed until the elders and authorities decided what should happen. The women who lost money were no longer shouting blindly at Papa B, because now they knew where the real deception had come from. During that time, my life stood between two worlds. In the city, Madame Vero still wanted me to manage the new salon branch. She told me the offer remained open, but I needed to decide when I was ready. In the village and the river town, my family story was still being repaired piece by piece. My mother needed treatment. Papa B needed care. Bintu needed direction. Adekunle wanted to be present, but he was careful not to rush me. Mama B wanted forgiveness, but forgiveness was not a door she could force open. One evening, after my mother became stronger, she asked to speak with me alone. We sat outside the clinic under a tree. The sun was setting, and the air was quiet. She looked better than the first day I saw her, but still fragile. She held the second necklace in her hand, the one that matched mine. For a long time, she only looked at it. Then she told me she did not expect me to call her mother. That sentence shocked me. She said motherhood is not only giving birth. It is staying, protecting, showing up, and choosing the child again and again. She said she failed at many of those things. She said she wanted a relationship with me, but she would accept whatever I could give. Even if all I could give was occasional visits. Even if all I could give was truth without closeness. Even if I never called her mama. For the first time, I saw real humility in her. Not the kind that begs to escape consequences. The kind that accepts them. I told her I did not know what I could give yet. She nodded. Then I asked her if she loved me when she left me. She cried before answering. She said yes, but her love was weak. She said love without courage can still damage a child. She said she loved me, but fear was stronger than her love at the time. She said that was her shame. Those words stayed with me. Love without courage. That was what many people in my life had given me. Papa B loved me quietly but lacked courage. My mother loved me weakly but lacked courage. Adekunle loved a memory but lacked courage to search harder. Even Bintu, later, cared but did not have courage until life humbled her. I decided that my own life would be different. If I loved someone, I would try to love them with courage. A month later, I returned fully to the city. Not to run away this time. To build. Papa came with us for treatment and stayed in a small room Adekunle arranged near the hospital. My mother also moved to the city for better medical care. She stayed with a church woman at first because I was not ready for her to live with me. Adekunle respected that. He visited her often. Sometimes I visited too. Our conversations were slow, careful, and sometimes painful, but they were honest. Bintu returned to my apartment with me. But she was no longer the same Bintu who first came to the city expecting comfort. She went back to work at the supermarket for a while, then enrolled in a small catering and business course with money she had saved. She said she wanted to learn properly this time, not because someone forced her, but because she finally wanted to become useful in a healthy way. That made me smile when she said it. The word useful had hurt me for years, but from Bintu's mouth, it sounded different. It sounded like responsibility, not exploitation. One evening, she cooked dinner without burning anything. We both laughed when we realized it. Then she looked at me and said, "Better, I know I cannot undo the past." I nodded. She continued, "But thank you for not throwing me away completely." I looked at her for a long time. Then I told her the truth. I almost did. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know. But you changed." "I'm still changing." That was honest. And honesty was enough for that moment. Madame Vero's new salon branch opened 2 months later. I stood outside the building on the first morning, looking at the signboard, feeling like my whole life had walked me there through fire. The salon was not huge, but it was beautiful. Bright mirrors, clean chairs, organized shelves, and a small office at the back. Madame Vero handed me the keys in front of the staff and told everyone that I was the manager. For a moment, I remembered the village salon. I remembered sweeping before sunrise. I remembered Mama B shouting. I remembered customers praising my hands while Mama B collected the money. I remembered hiding small savings under clothes. I remembered the phone Bintu took. I remembered the night bus that carried me away from the village. Then I looked at the keys in my hand. This responsibility was different. This one came with dignity. Bintu attended the opening. She brought flowers and cried more than I did. Papa came in a wheelchair, smiling proudly. Adekunle stood at the back, watching quietly, trying not to overwhelm me. My mother came too, dressed simply, holding her matching necklace. Mama B did not come. She was still dealing with the investigation and the village elders. Part of me was relieved. Another part of me wondered what she would have felt seeing the girl she used as free labor become a respected manager in a city salon. A few days after the opening, I received a letter. It was from Mama B. For a while, I did not open it. Letters had already changed my life too many times. But eventually, I sat alone in my room and read it. Mama B wrote that she had spent many nights thinking about everything. She did not try to fully excuse herself this time. She admitted that bitterness made her cruel. She admitted that she saw me as punishment for Papa B's past. She admitted that when she realized I was not even Papa B's biological child, her anger became worse because she felt trapped caring for a child she believed had no connection to her home. She admitted that my skill and obedience made it easy for her to keep using me. She said the hardest truth was realizing that she had raised Bintu with softness while raising me with pain, and in the end, both daughters suffered. She wrote that she did not expect forgiveness. She only wanted to say the words she never said. I was wrong. I read that sentence many times. I did not cry. I placed the letter inside a drawer. Maybe one day I would answer. Maybe not. Healing does not need to move at the speed of someone else's regret. As time passed, the family changed in ways I never imagined. Adekunle became part of my life slowly. I did not call him father at first. I called him by his name. He accepted it without complaint. He helped without controlling. He gave without reminding me. He asked questions about my life, my school, my work, my dreams. Sometimes his sadness was too much to watch because every answer reminded him of the years he missed. But he carried that sadness quietly. One day, after visiting my mother at the clinic, he told me he had opened an education fund in my name. I immediately became defensive. I told him I did not want to be bought. He shook his head and said it was not payment. It was not apology. It was simply something he should have done long ago if he had known. I told him I would think about it. Later, I used part of it to continue my adult education properly. Not because I needed his money to become worthy. But because the girl who once stood at the gate watching children go to school deserved to finish what was stolen from her. My mother improved slowly. Some days were good. Some days were hard. Our relationship remained complicated, but real. She told me stories about herself, about her youth, about mistakes, about dreams she once had. I told her about the village, but not all at once. Some stories were too painful to give in one sitting. When I told her about sleeping in the corridor, she cried so hard the nurse came to check on her. I almost regretted telling her, but then I remembered that hiding truth to protect adults was part of what damaged me. So I let her hear it. Not to punish her. To be known. That became important to me. I wanted the people who claimed to love me to know the real story, not the cleaned version. Papa B also continued treatment. His body did not become young again, but he became more peaceful. He apologized less with words and more with actions. He stopped defending his silence. He stopped saying he was helpless. He began admitting that being weak did not remove his responsibility. That honesty helped me more than repeated apologies. One afternoon, he asked if I still saw him as my father. I did not answer quickly. Then I told him that biology had changed, but history was not so simple. He was not my real father by blood, but he had been part of my life, both in painful ways and tender ways. He had failed me deeply, but he had also stayed on the corridor floor beside me that first night when nobody else cared. He had not protected me enough, but he had helped me escape to the city when the opportunity came. I told him I did not know what name to give him yet. He nodded with tears in his eyes. He said he would accept any name that allowed him to remain in my life. That was enough for that day. Months later, the village salon matter finally reached a decision. The sale was cancelled because the approval documents were fraudulent. Chief Dogo faced charges connected to fraud, threats, and old business matters that Adekunle reopened. Mama B was not free from consequences either. She had to repay part of the women's money through a structured agreement, and some of her personal belongings were sold to cover debts. The village elders also removed her from the women's group leadership permanently. She lost the image she had protected for years. For someone like Mama B, that was a heavy punishment. The salon itself was returned under Papa B's name temporarily, but he surprised everyone by saying he did not want it anymore. He said too much pain had passed through that shop. He asked if I wanted it. I thought about it for a long time, then said no. I did not want to build my future inside the same place that swallowed my childhood. So we made another decision. The salon was rented out to a young woman in the village who had been looking for a place to start. Part of the rent went toward repaying the women's group. Part went toward Papa B's treatment. Part was set aside to support girls in the village who wanted to learn skills without being pulled out of school. That last part was my condition. If my pain had to leave anything behind in that village, it would not be another chain. It would be a door. The first girl we supported was only 13. When I saw her carrying both school books and hair training tools, I felt something inside me settle. She would not be forced to choose the way I was. She would learn skill, yes, but she would also go to school. She would not be told that work was her only value. That was when I finally understood something about turning pain into purpose. It does not mean pretending the pain was good. It means refusing to let the pain be the final thing it creates. Bintu eventually moved into a small place of her own near her catering school. On the day she moved out, we both cried. It was funny because years ago, I would have prayed for her to leave me alone. Now I was helping her arrange pots, plates, and a small mattress in her own room. She hugged me and called me sister again. This time, the word did not shock me. It felt natural. She still visited often. Sometimes she brought food. Sometimes the food was too spicy, and we laughed about it. Sometimes she came to talk when guilt returned. I told her guilt is not always bad. It becomes bad only when it turns into self-pity instead of change. She understood. One Sunday afternoon, something unexpected happened. Mama B came to the city. But this time, she did not arrive with bags. She did not arrive shouting. She came with Bintu, who had gone to the village to check on some things. Mama B looked older, thinner, and quieter. She stood outside my apartment door with her hands clasped in front of her. For a moment I remembered the day she first came to my city home, demanding to enter. This time, she did not step forward. She asked if she could speak to me. I allowed her inside, but I did not let the past disappear. We sat in the living room. Bintu stayed in the kitchen, close enough to hear if needed but far enough to give space. Mama B looked around the apartment and said it was beautiful. I said thank you. Then silence sat between us. Finally, she said she had started attending church counseling with one older woman in the village. She said talking about the past made her realize how much anger she had carried before I ever came into her house. She had been angry at poverty. Angry at Papa B's accident. Angry at being the provider. Angry at feeling trapped. Then I came, and she poured all that anger into one child because it was easier than facing her life honestly. I listened. She said she was not asking me to call her mother. She said she had no right. Then she placed something on the table. It was a small photograph. I picked it up and saw myself at around 15, standing outside the village salon with attachment in my hand. I did not even know the photo existed. In it, my face looked serious, older than my age. Mama B said one customer took it and gave it to her years ago. She kept it, though she never knew why. She said maybe some part of her always knew I was the reason the salon survived. Her voice broke. She said, "Better, I am sorry I saw your strength and used it instead of protecting it." That sentence entered me differently. Not because it fixed everything, but because it was finally specific. Not just sorry for everything. Sorry for seeing your strength and using it. I looked at the photo for a long time. Then I told her I could not give her what she wanted quickly. I told her I might never see her as a mother. I told her some wounds would always remain part of my story. But I also told her I was tired of hatred. Hatred had kept me tied to that old house too long. I wanted freedom more than revenge. Mama B cried quietly. This time, she did not make her tears loud. She thanked me and left soon after. When the door closed, Bintu came out and looked at me. She asked if I was okay. I said yes. And for once, I meant it a little. A year later, my life looked nothing like the life I once imagined while sleeping in Mama B's corridor. I managed Madame Vero's salon brand successfully. I continued school. I started a small mentorship program for girls who wanted to learn hairstyling while staying in school. Bintu's catering business slowly grew. Papa B's health became stable. My mother remained in treatment but grew stronger enough to visit sometimes. Adekunle became a steady presence, not forcing fatherhood, but earning trust slowly. On my birthday that year, they all gathered in the city. Madame Vero hosted a small dinner. Bintu cooked most of the food. Adekunle brought flowers. Papa B prayed. My mother gave me the matching necklace properly, placing it in my hand instead of on my neck. She said I should wear it only when I was ready. Mama B did not attend, but she sent a short message through Bintu. "Happy birthday, Better. May your life be sweeter than what I gave you." I read it quietly. Then I placed the phone down. During dinner, Papa B stood to pray, but his voice shook. He thanked God for truth, even though truth had broken many things fast. He thanked God for second chances, even though some chances came late. Then he said something that made everyone quiet. He said, "In life, some people are salt and some people are pepper. Salt gives taste, pepper gives heat. But too much of either one can spoil the whole food. A family also needs balance. Love without truth is too soft. Truth without love is too harsh. But when truth and love finally meet, healing can begin." Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Bintu laughed softly and said maybe that was why our story was called Salt and Pepper. We all laughed, even through tears. For the first time, the name did not feel like pain. It felt like survival. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood alone near my apartment window. The city lights stretched far into the distance. I thought about the girl I used to be. The girl with dusty slippers. The girl who slept outside. The girl who watched other children go to school. The girl who made hair until her fingers hurt. The girl who believed she had been thrown away by everyone. I wished I could go back and hold her. I would tell her that one day she would leave that corridor. One day she would own her story. One day the people who silenced her would have to hear her voice. One day she would learn that being unwanted by the wrong people does not mean she has no value. One day she would stop begging for a place in a family that only needed her labor. One day she would build a life where love did not mean suffering quietly. I could not go back. But I could live forward. So I closed my eyes and made one promise to myself. I would never again confuse being needed with being loved. I would never again allow someone to use my strength as an excuse to hurt me. I would never again let silence decide my life. And if I ever had a daughter, a student, a sister, or any young girl looking at me the way I once looked at the world, I would tell her the truth early. You are not born to carry everyone's burden. You are not selfish for wanting a future. You are not ungrateful for leaving a place that breaks you. And you are not weak because you cried. Sometimes, the person who cries and still continues is the strongest person in the room. My name is Beta. For many years, people treated me like I was nothing more than help in the house, hands in the salon, and money for the family. But I was never just that. I was a child. I was a daughter. I was a sister. I was a dreamer. I was a survivor. And finally, after all the lies, all the pain, all the hidden letters, all the stolen years, and all the secrets buried under shame, I found something greater than the truth about my mother, my father, or my past. I found myself. And that was the beginning of my real life.
And that was the final part of Salt and Pepper, a story about pain, truth, forgiveness, and finding yourself.